We know for certain that that the wreckage comes from a Boeing 777, that this part does not fit any other aircraft. But of course there are still some I's not dotted and T's not crossed. There is a still very small element of doubt.
Australian Deputy Prime Minister Warren Truss commenting on the investigation into the airplane debris found off the coast of Africa. He says this investigation is promising, but there's still some doubt about whether or not this piece of wreckage actually belongs to missing Malaysian flight MH370.
Yeah, Malaysian officials say they're certain the wing found does in fact belong to that missing flight, but the international investigation team says it's not ready to make that confirmation.
For more on the ongoing investigation, let's call on aviation safety expert and the president of airsafe.com, Todd Curtis, who joins us today via Skype from Massachusetts. So I don't guess you'd call it a disagreement, Todd, but Malaysian officials are saying this is definitely a piece of the debris, but investigators in France say not so fast. Why the disconnect?
It's unclear to me why there's a disconnect. But in fact, the way these investigations go, the official authority, which is the entity responsible for the investigation, are the Malaysian authorities. And by international agreement, any official pronouncements would come out of that authority. So although the Malaysian authorities have made an official pronouncement, the French authorities happen to be in possession of the technical and other information that would actually definitively show whether or not it's from the 777 or not. So for the time being, we'll have this split authority as to whether or not that was a flaperon from MH370.
Todd, the Malaysian government now says that more debris has washed up on that French island shore. Those reports also unconfirmed. Now, if more debris is actually found on that Reunion Island, what could that mean? What could that actually say about what happened to the plane?
Well, it's unclear to me what it may mean because although debris was found by the authorities in the island of Reunion, for the time being at least, the French authorities are the ones who are going to determine whether or not it was from MH370 or not. And of course, the French have both Malaysian, U.S., and other authorities helping them with that task. What it could mean is this, that there could be a lot of suspect articles that could be from MH370, but they just have to go through the process of elimination as to whether or not it could or could not have been from that flight.
Todd, families of the missing passengers continue to be frustrated from these conflicting reports. Why did the Malaysian government not wait for the official confirmation from France?
Well, without going into great detail, there are a lot of things about the Malaysian authorities' reactions in the past 17 months that makes one scratch one's head. So I'm not sure why there was a disconnect or why there wasn't, why they didn't wait until there was agreement between the French and the Malaysian authorities before they both made a joint announcement. That's something that only the French and Malaysian authorities can answer for certain.
There are also reports, Todd, coming out that Malaysian authorities contacted the media first prior to contacting the family. Is that normal?
Again, it's up to the country responsible for the investigation to have their processes in place when it comes to communicating with families and communicating with other partners. The NTSB actually led the world with actually having very formal procedures in place for communicating with families in an event like this. These are not adopted universally across the world, so the relationship between an investigating authority and the media can vary widely. And in this case, Malaysia is not behaving in the same way that the NTSB would have in a similar situation.
So, Todd, you've been remarkably diplomatic here discussing what's going on with Malaysia. Let me try to state it in a positive vein. If they were to contact Todd Curtis for advice and consultation, what would you be telling the Malaysian government?
First and foremost, I would tell them to work closely with the partners who are already what are called parties to the investigation. In this case, the United States, Great Britain, and Australia are formally part of the investigation. All three of those countries have well-established procedures for communicating with the press, for coordinating information, for releasing information that have served them well for decades. If they were to follow those processes more closely, we wouldn't have this kind of confusion we've seen in the media and elsewhere.
But I have to ask you, there are some family members that are saying that this is not confirmation because, frankly, the victims' bodies have not been found. Is that reasonable to expect that?
Well, there are a couple of things that are going on here. One is confirmation that this was actually a part of the aircraft. What hasn't been confirmed yet is obviously the location of the remains and the locations of the rest of the aircraft. And at this point, I think they have to go with the best available evidence. And right now, the best available evidence are that flaperon and the signals that came off of the satellite almost 18 months ago. Those two sets of information give you a pretty good idea that the aircraft was lost in that part of the ocean and that it was not lost intact.
We will have to leave it there. Todd Curtis Skyping in today from Seattle rather than the East Coast. We thank you for your time, and Newsmax Prime continues after this.